What's up, everybody? It's your boy Mikey G coming at you today with another topic, and today I would like to discuss basically when people say, well, if I grew up this way, then I would have turned out. Stop. You do not know how you would turn out if you were raised a certain way. You don't know that. Think of your siblings, for instance. Say you have siblings and say you're around the same age. You all grow up in the same household with the same parents. You're taught the same lessons, and yet you guys turn out vastly different from each other. A big problem is everyone believes that the way a person turns out is completely on the parents, when that's far from it. The way someone turns out not only depends on their parents or the household they're raised in, it depends on the environments they're surrounded in, it depends on the conditions they live in. A lot of different factors depend on a child's development into the person they become. It's not just what the parents do. The parents can only do so much. Hell, even as a kid, I grew up knowing this. I knew that I would have certain influence at school that I wouldn't have at home. Hell, as a kid, I was kind of bad. I was, viewed as a good child from everyone, whether I was in school or at home. But when I was outside the house in my neighborhoods that I would live in, and other kids I knew were in these neighborhoods, I was not great. I was very respectful towards any adult I met. I'm still, of course, very cautious. But as far as being a good kid outside of school and outside of home, I was not that great. But that had nothing to do with my parents. It also had nothing to do with really my school. It just, the kids I was around at the time, we all just were kids. I've done that could have thrown me in jail as a kid that my parents don't know about. Nothing too bad, y'all, so don't start calling and questioning me once you see this. No, just like kid. So no, you can't say,
well, had I been raised this way, then I would have turned out like this.
You really don't know how you would have turned out, because although me and my siblings were raised the same way somewhat and went to the same schools and stuff and were even around the same age, we turned out vastly different because of how we handled certain situations and what type of lifestyle we live currently. We've changed drastically. Like, we're polar opposites. You couldn't tell we were raised in the same household by the same people. And that's with anybody. Now, there are some people that are extremely close, that are almost identical in the ways that they do things, but that's not very common. What is very common is everyone becomes their own adult after whatever they go through in life. And some of the experience I have gotten in my life, my siblings have never gotten, and vice versa. Those experiences can change and will change our development going forward, regardless of our parents' interaction or not. I've always found it to be premature to say, well, if a kid does this, then it's automatically the parents' fault. Yes, the parents should shoulder some of the blame, but at the same time, kids ain't stupid. Whenever I was a kid, I was so smart to a point where I knew not to say certain things around my parents, knew not to mention certain things around my parents, knew not to do certain things around them. Parents or any family member that I didn't trust to hold a secret or anything. I was very, very, very smart. I've done like I said, that I could have gone to jail for, that I should have gone to jail for. Not really jail, but paid a fine or something for it. That I've done as a kid. I knew it was bad, and I knew if I told my parents, I'd be in a world of trouble. And it's not like I didn't want to tell them because I was afraid. It's like I knew better. But as a kid, you're curious to try stuff, regardless of what your parents tell you, regardless of how you're raised. You're curious to try things that you know you shouldn't do, but what will happen if I do it? We all have that curiosity. Some never go through with that. Some experiment and end up in jail. I'll give you an example of what I've done. Now, of course, I'm not going to mention any names of anyone else that was involved with these things because they don't need to be put in here like this. But if they see this, they'll know I'm talking about them. So, at the time I was in middle school, lived in this neighborhood. Most of my friends were at. We just chill, do what kids do, play games, play outside, roll around the neighborhood on bikes or whatever we have at the time. And then sometimes we got bored. So I remember one of us got bored. One of them ask us if we wanted a snack or something. We say sure. They go to a corner store, bring us some snacks, bring us whatever we asked for. We're like, okay, cool. You know, how much was this? And then they told us, oh no, don't worry about that. Like, okay, cool. Didn't think anything of it. Then we later find out that this guy has actually been stealing snacks out of the corner store. I have a moral compass, even as a middle school. Like, people, you can ask anyone. I was very mature for my age. I was very well aware of what was good and what was bad, what we should and should not be doing. So I heard this and I'm like, man, this is messed up. But I really want another sneakers. I still had that kid mentality, that curious mentality, like, well, what if? You know, what if we can keep this going? So we do. And eventually we get into it. I'm going to admit this when I say this. I have taken out of a grocery store, not a grocery store, a corner store once or twice growing up in middle school. I've done that once or twice. My parents don't know about this. My brothers and sisters don't think I told them because I was very smart as a kid. I'm not going to tell my brothers and sisters this just so they can do it themselves. I made that mistake with one of my siblings when I told them I cussed. And that was a mistake. I learned that lesson. So there was no way I was going to tell my brother and sister that I'm stealing out of stores. The good child is stealing out of corner stores. Like I said, I only did it twice, and I only did it with like small stuff like sneakers or something like that. You know, like a small candy that didn't cost over $2. But I was still stealing. We would literally make plans to go get some of this stuff. One of us would go in there, act like we're going to get something, or actually get something, while the other one sneaks in, gets whatever they want, walks out. We planned like kids, and it would work for the most part. We even were aware of the cameras. But it still worked out in the end. There was one time, though, we had a scare, and we nearly got caught up. And from that day forward, I told myself, never again. I ain't never doing it again. Hell, me and some of my other friends that were there, we said never again. That was too close, right? We could have gotten in serious trouble for that. And in middle school, you would think that we were thinking about,
oh man, what if my parents find out?
No, we were thinking about jail. We thought about jail. I mean, yeah, our parents' concern was one thing. I was afraid of disappointing my parents, but jail was definitely on my mind too. But this story is brought up to a point where, regardless of my reputation in school, regardless of my reputation at home, I was still a kid at the end of the day. Kids are gonna do kid stuff. We're curious. We have questions. We question everything. So we're gonna test theories. We come up with theories, we're gonna test them. That was a theory I had. What will happen if I do this and not get caught? Will I feel bad? Will I feel horrible? Honestly, when I got that stuff, it was exciting. It was scary. And when I got it, I felt satisfied. And I was like, I could do this, but I'm not going to make it a habit. Because see, like I said, I'm very well aware of what's wrong and what's right. More than most of my peers at the time, but yet and still. But none of us got caught up. We all stopped doing that after that little scare. You know, of course, we didn't tell our parents. We did not. My parents are going to find out when they see this video. I mean, I'm a grown man now, but they can still kick my ass for that, but whatever. It was never because I didn't respect them. It was never because they didn't raise me right. I was just a kid. I was very curious about the world, about how things worked, about what would happen if I did this. Even though I was very well aware of what could have happened, I was still wondering, would it feel worth it? And of course, it didn't. After that time we almost got caught, it didn't feel worth it at all. And I was just happy nothing happened. Heck, there were friends that I had in that same neighborhood that swore up and down would never do this. They had money and had morals, and they did it with us too. Because it was just something to do as kids. Like I said, I'm not gonna disclose any of their names, but y'all know who y'all are. You do. But I say that to say this. You can't always shoulder the blame of a child's development on the parents or even on the school. Because the outside environment, no matter what y'all do, the child is always going to find some way to get into something or to be curious about something and want to explore it for themselves. So the only way you can possibly put a blame on a parent for a child's development is if the parent is watching their every move 24/7 and the child is well aware of this and they still turn out bad. Okay, put it on the parents, right? But of course, there's still going to be outside factors they encounter. And obviously, there's going to be no parents with that time, with that amount of time to be able to watch their kids 24/7 like that, especially when they have to be able to fend for their kids, pay bills, feed them, all of that. You can't do all of that and keep 24-hour watch on your child. It's not happening. It's not possible. You can't do that with one, let alone multiple. And all this came up because, honestly, I get sick of the argument when people say,
well, if I had been raised like this, then I would have turned out like this.
no, you really, like I said, you don't know that. Because there are too many factors in the world that can change your perspective on stuff, that can change how you develop. Your parents, yes, you're with them most of the time, most of your life, and you learn a lot of lessons from them. But you don't learn all your lessons from them. You don't learn everything from your parents. You learn some things in school. Whether, I'm not even talking about academic stuff, I'm talking about like life lessons. You can learn life lessons at school. You learn life lessons at home. You learn life lessons through life. To say that it's completely a parent's responsibility to make sure that child doesn't turn out a certain way is impossible. It is. It's impossible. I'm not a parent, but I'm well aware of the challenges of being a parent through other people and through my parents and their experience. Heck, children are very observant. They know when a parent is struggling. We're well aware, but we also are aware that they do their best for us. Most children that see that and understand this don't want to cause them any trouble. Even while struggling, that's still the child being raised by the parents. Because the parent's experience can also raise a child. If the parent isn't at home for long, the experience is the child and parent relationship should never be a thing. They don't need the parent. They don't ever have any need for them. So it's like, I don't need you. I'm growing up without you. They're going to become more rebellious and everything else just by the actions the parents don't take. Like I said, you can't put everything on the guardians, but they still do, of course, have responsibilities, but they don't hold all the responsibility. When big tragic things happen involving children, we should not immediately look to the parents and say what they didn't do, because honestly, it's very impossible for a parent to stop everything a child does. It's very impossible to do that for one, let alone multiple children. It's impossible for teachers. It's impossible for other adults that might meet these children. It's impossible for the parents. It's impossible. The child is going to do what the child wants to do. You can influence a lot of decisions they make, but you don't know what type of influence you're really giving them until the child commits a certain action. Then you'll know the type of influence that you gave off. There is no such thing as a perfect way to raise a child. No such method exists. If it did, it'd be more widespread. It'd be more used and more known. So there's no such thing as the perfect parent. That doesn't exist either. Everyone has their flaws. No such thing as a perfect teaching method. Most parents teach as they go. They're learning stuff along with their children. Everyone learns at the end of the day. Just because you're raised by someone doesn't mean they have all the answers. They don't know everything. They know more than you, of course, because they're older and more wiser, but they don't know everything. And they never will know everything. They'll probably learn how to be better parents by the time the children are well in adulthood. It's just, that's just is what it is. They'll only know after they experience such things though. So, like I said, you can't always blame them for everything. Can you be upset with them over certain things? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's not going to change the fact that what you experience is what you experience. But if you became better from it, then honestly, as much as you might hate the person or hate the people, a part of you still thanks them for that. I know they do. A part of you still will thank them for the experience that you have and for becoming the man or woman that you have become because of the experience that you had. Like I said, regardless if it's a bad one or not, if it changed you and made you better, I ain't gonna say praise the people that made that possible, that, you know, made your life a living hell, but made you better. But whether you want to admit it or not, you still have some appreciation for how you came out. People always want to shoulder blames to the parents when really the parents can only do so much. They can't hold your hand everywhere. Eventually, you're gonna get too old to get your hand held. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I'm in no way an expert in anything I'm talking about. And hell, start a conversation about this. Tell me your experiences. Leave comments, like, share, subscribe. Turn on notifications because I'm posting every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. 3 p.m. I'm not gonna miss a week. So even if I'm not making videos for a month or so, I'll have videos for months. And this will probably come out in like November or December or something like that. Something like that. I don't know. But I'm currently making this at the beginning of August. So that tells you how many videos I'm really cramming out right now. I ain't nobody special.
I'm just Mikey G.